The road stretched endlessly before me, swallowed by the thick fog rolling in from both sides. Midnight had long passed, and I was the only one driving on this desolate highway. My fingers gripped the steering wheel a little tighter as the silence outside pressed against my car like a heavy blanket. The headlights barely cut through the darkness, illuminating only a few feet ahead before fading into the abyss. I had taken this route before, but tonight something felt different. It wasn't just the lack of other vehicles or the eerie stillness in the air. It was the way the road itself seemed to change, twisting subtly, making me question whether I had been here before or if I was driving in circles. My GPS flickered for a second, the signal briefly lost before reconnecting. I turned up the radio to break the silence, but all I got was static. Confused, I switched channels, only to find the same buzzing emptiness on every frequency. Just as I reached to turn it off, the static warped, distorting into something that almost sounded like a whisper. My pulse quickened. I turned the volume down, straining to listen. A voice, low, faint, almost calling my name. I snapped the radio off. My heart pounded in my chest. It had to be a trick of my mind, exhaustion playing games with me. I had been on the road for too long, and I needed to stay focused, but as I exhaled and tried to steady my nerves, I caught something in the corner of my eye. A figure, standing by the edge of the road. I barely got a glimpse before I sped past, but my stomach dropped. It was a man, or at least something shaped like one, tall and unmoving, dressed in what looked like dark, tattered clothes. But what made my skin crawl was the way he stood there. No movement, no reaction to my speeding car. Just a rigid, lifeless posture, as if he were a statue carved into the night itself. I shook my head, trying to shake off the unease. Maybe it was a hitchhiker. Maybe my imagination was running wild. Then my headlights flickered, just for a second. Just long enough for the darkness to stretch toward me like grasping hands. A chill crawled down my spine. I reached for my phone to check the time, 1:13 a.m. The screen's brightness was almost blinding in the dim car, but my stomach clenched when I noticed something strange. No signal, not just weak reception, nothing. I locked my phone and forced my focus back onto the road. It was fine. I was just overthinking things, but then I saw him again, standing at the next bend in the road. Same tattered clothes, same motionless stance. I slammed on the gas. There was no way. No way he could have gotten here before me. No side roads, no cars, no footsteps. I swallowed hard, my hands slick with sweat. My breath came shallow as I kept my eyes locked on the highway, refusing to look into the rearview mirror, refusing to check if he was still standing there, watching me. Then, somewhere in the distance, I heard it. A whisper. Coming from inside the car, I froze. The whisper was faint, almost drowned out by the hum of my tires against the pavement. But I knew I hadn't imagined it. It had come from behind me. My breath hitched as I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. My mind screamed at me to check, but something deeper, some primal instinct buried within me, knew better. I wasn't alone. My pulse hammered against my ribs as I forced my eyes to stay on the road. The headlights cut through the darkness, but it felt like the night was closing in, swallowing everything beyond that small beam of light. Then the whisper came again, closer. A rush of cold air brushed against my neck, like someone exhaling just behind my seat. A shudder ran down my spine. My breathing quickened. I could feel something there, an unseen presence pressing against me, lingering just outside my field of vision. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to focus. Just drive. Don't stop. Don't look. The road stretched on, impossibly long. I should have seen an exit by now, a gas station, another car, anything. But there was nothing. Just the same endless stretch of pavement, cutting through an abyss of fog and darkness. Suddenly, my headlights flickered again. The dashboard lights dimmed. The car lurched, the engine sputtering for a brief second before roaring back to life. My heart leaped into my throat. Then, the radio turned on by itself. At first, it was just static, the same as before. But then, beneath the crackling noise, I heard something else. A low, distorted voice, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. The words warped and twisted, like they were being dragged through the speakers from another world. My fingers trembled as I reached for the volume knob. The moment my hand touched it, the voice stopped. Silence. But the quiet was worse. I exhaled shakily and glanced at my phone again. Still no signal. Still 1:13 a.m. My stomach clenched. That wasn't possible. I had been driving for at least 15 minutes since I last checked. The time should have changed. A cold dread settled in my gut. Something was wrong. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the rearview mirror. I didn't mean to look. I had promised myself I wouldn't. But instinct took over, and for a split second, my gaze flicked upward. And I saw it. A figure sitting in my back seat. I slammed the brakes. The tires screeched against the asphalt, my body lurching forward as the car skidded to a stop. My breathing was ragged, my chest rising and falling in sharp, shallow gasps. Slowly, my trembling hand reached for the dome light. My fingers hovered over the switch. I didn't want to turn around, but I had to know. Summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I flicked the light on. And the back seat was empty, but the door was unlocked. And outside, just beyond the reach of my headlights, something was standing there. My breath hitched in my throat. The figure stood just outside the car, barely visible in the dim glow of my taillights. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It was just there. I felt an unnatural stillness settle over the highway, as if the entire world had paused, holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. My fingers trembled as I reached for the lock button, but before I could press it, the headlights flickered. For a split second, everything went dark. And when the lights came back on, the figure was closer. I gasped, my body locking in place. It was right at the edge of the car now, just outside the passenger side window. Its face, if it had one, was shrouded in darkness. An unnatural void where features should have been, but I could feel it looking at me, staring. The engine sputtered. The radio crackled back to life, but this time it wasn't static. It was breathing. A deep, ragged inhale, followed by an exhale so slow, so deliberate, it sent ice through my veins. My instinct screamed at me to move, but fear held me captive. I tried to tell myself this wasn't real, that I was just exhausted, that my mind was playing tricks on me. Then the handle of the passenger door clicked. The door was unlocking. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires screeched as the car jolted forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't dare look in the mirrors. I didn't dare check if it was still there. The road twisted and turned unnaturally, stretching into an endless maze of darkness. My hands were slick with sweat, knuckles aching from how hard I was gripping the wheel. I just needed to keep going, keep driving, get away. But then, the car jerked violently, as if something had grabbed the back. My body lurched forward, my seatbelt tightening painfully against my chest. The engine groaned in protest, the speedometer dropping as if something unseen was dragging me backward. I screamed, slamming my foot on the pedal, but the car wouldn't accelerate. The headlights flickered again, and in the brief moments of darkness, I saw shapes moving in the fog. Not just one, many. Tall, shadowy figures lining the sides of the road, watching, waiting. My breathing came in short, panicked gasps. The car shuddered under an invisible force, the pressure growing heavier, as if hands were pressing down on the roof, the hood, the windows. Then the whispering started again. This time, it wasn't just from the radio. It was inside the car. Soft guttural voices curling around me, slipping into my ears, weaving into my thoughts. The words were unintelligible, but I didn't need to understand them to know what they meant. They wanted me to stop. They wanted me to give in. A cold breath brushed against my ear. Right beside me, my grip tightened on the wheel. Number, number. I let out a ragged scream and yanked the wheel hard to the right. The tires screeched, the car swerving wildly. The pressure lifted, just for a moment. And I took my chance, slamming the gas pedal as hard as I could. The car surged forward, breaking free. The whispering stopped. The radio cut out. The figures in the fog melted away. For a moment, there was only the sound of my own breath, ragged and uneven. Then slowly, painfully, I realized something. The road ahead was gone. The moment I realized the road had vanished, my stomach dropped. The asphalt, the white lines, even the faint glow of distant street signs, all gone. Instead, an abyss stretched before me, an endless void of swirling darkness. I had no time to react. The car surged forward, straight into nothingness. A sickening lurch. Then, weightlessness. For a split second, I was floating. My body lifted off the seat, my hands losing grip on the wheel. A deep, suffocating silence swallowed everything. Then, impact. A violent jolt sent my body slamming back into the seat as the car crashed down onto something solid. The tires screeched, the frame shuddered, metal groaning under the force. I gasped, my vision swimming, my chest heaving for air. I was still moving. Somehow, the car was still on a road. But this wasn't the same highway. This road was wrong. The pavement was cracked and uneven, deep fissures running along its surface like veins. The sky above was an oppressive, swirling mass of dark red and black, shifting like a storm trapped in slow motion. And the figures. They were everywhere, standing in the distance, lining the sides of the broken road, their hollow eyes fixed on me. Some were tall and thin, their limbs too long, their bodies contorted unnaturally. Others were short and hunched, their faces twisted in silent agony. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. The car kept going, as if pulled by an unseen force. My hands trembled as I tried to turn the wheel. But it wouldn't move. I wasn't driving anymore. Ahead, the road sloped downward into a tunnel, a gaping hole of endless black. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through my bones. I could feel it in my chest, in my skull, an ancient, hungry presence. Waiting at the bottom of that tunnel, I had to stop. I had to get out. With every ounce of strength I had left, I threw the car into neutral, yanked the emergency brake, and flung the door open. Then I ran. I didn't know where I was running to. I didn't care. I just knew I couldn't let that tunnel consume me. My feet pounded against the cracked pavement, lungs burning, every breath a struggle. The whispering returned, louder now, layered voices overlapping in a grotesque symphony. I felt them behind me, chasing me, closing in, my vision blurred, my legs growing weaker. I wasn't going to make it. Then, headlights. Up ahead, bright, blinding headlights cutting through the darkness. A car was coming. A real car. I stumbled forward, waving my arms frantically. Stop, please. The car screeched to a halt just inches away. The driver, a middle-aged man with wide, terrified eyes, threw open his door. What the hell are you doing out here? I turned back. The road behind me was normal. The cracked pavement, the figures, the tunnel. All gone. Just an empty stretch of highway beneath the cold glow of the moon. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. The man helped me up, his face a mask of concern. You okay? You're pale as a ghost. Where's your car? I turned back, expecting to see my vehicle still sitting on the road. But it wasn't there. There was nothing, not even tire marks. I should have been relieved. I should have felt safe. But deep in my gut, I knew. I hadn't escaped. I had just been let go. For now.